here for the Coach's Corner session with Trisha Adams. We're here to talk about captain training for long distance events. Now, this one is really appropriate, obviously, because we're talking to Team BJ in this session, one of our Ironman teams. We've got two that are doing it this September here in Wisconsin. And we often get a lot of questions from the families and the captains themselves about, hey, I want to do a long distance event. It could be a marathon, half Ironman, Ironman, could even be a shorter distance. It all depends on what they're used to. But what are some tips that you have to kind of help me be successful physically, mentally, focusing on nutrition, all those aspects? And so we thought this would be a great time to bring in Trisha and just have a conversation, give you guys some tips of ways that you can train for and be successful in a long distance event with MTT or even beyond. So super excited about this, especially because Trisha's been an angel for us in Ironman. She did Ironman last year, right, with Kayla. And obviously, you had firsthand experience doing that with her and kind of seeing how she went through some of that. So before we dive into it a little bit, talk about your experience with her in that event, and maybe some of the things that she went through as she was finishing up that that event, and maybe some things that you would give as advice for our captains.
Yeah, I think Kayla learned a lot that day, and I think she would tell you that too. But I think if you back it up, 4 or 6 months before that, the training and the events leading up to Ironman is where she really started learning. I remember we did Washington Island,
Mm-hmm.
an 8-hour event, and I think she learned a lot that day about, just sunscreen and how to get comfortable in the chair and how you get uncomfortable in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those few months leading up to the event and those practice and training events that are really important for your learning curve
Mm-hmm.
leading up to the event.
Yeah. So obviously, I think the takeaway from that is, if you want to do a long distance event, whether you're an angel or a captain, preparation is huge, and you got to focus on multiple different modes or dimensions of being ready and preparing yourself. So we want to focus on three main things. We want to focus on physical, how you train your body. We want to focus on nutrition, so the fuel you take in to make sure that you're healthy during or leading up to, and then during the event, and maybe even after. And then the mental side of things. So focusing on those three aspects. So, obviously, first off, physical side of things, Trisha. So, um, where would you say how would you say some of our captains should start thinking about how they can train physically to do an Ironman, knowing most of them, they're in one of the race chairs or the boats or the bike trailers, yet still they're physically going to have a lot of demands on themselves.
hmm I think in general, when you start thinking about it, just telling you or asking yourself, what can I do? So, what are the things I can do? And then start breaking it down from there. So, what am I able to do and how can I use that to my advantage and strengthen the areas that may already be strong and then work on the areas that are my limitations. So, the things that are going to make me tired during that long event or the things that are going to kind of limit my enjoyment of that event. So, when you start breaking it down and you get down to the literal components. What can I do with my arms? So what am I going to be doing that day? I'm going to be reaching for nutrition. I'm going to be holding things, blankets or things that I'm holding in my lap. I could be getting out of the chair in transition or to go to the bathroom, and I'm going to need that arm strength.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, just even stuff you can do at home, taking a weight or a ball or something, and um, you know
Mm-hmm.
moving your arms in the directions that you're going to need to away from your body in at different angles, and then you just go from there. So then you go. I think, and we had talked about your core is
Mm-hmm.
probably the most important thing for a captain throughout an endurance event because you're going to need that to stabilize your
Yes.
position, and it's different than you and I sitting here on a couch, or a captain sitting in a wheelchair, for example. and not moving. When you're behind that bike or behind that runner, you're moving all the time. You're going uphill, you're going downhill, you're turning, and again, you're reaching for nutrition and stuff like that. So think about those movements and maybe do an event and experience those movements, and then practice those movements.
Yeah.
So twisting, engaging those muscles and twisting, and even just sitting up straight. Hold it for 30 seconds, and then rest. Do it again. Sit up straight, engage whatever muscles you can, and then rest.
Maybe build up time as you're
Yep.
doing that.
Yep, just like training for running or cycling, building up that time is what's going to build endurance for
So I can
you.
imagine some of the captains, if they're utilizing a wheelchair for most of their time, they're not getting a lot of that stimulation where they have to use that trunk support. Their core, their back, their internal and external core muscles, and so, even just holding yourself upright in a good posture for 30 seconds, that's exhausting. That's tiring for most people, I think, but also for those captains that are a little bit less active, if you will. Would you agree with that?
Again, yeah, and again, just because you are less active doesn't mean you can't be active. So that again goes back to thinking about what you can do. I can be active by engaging my core and practicing those movements and just building up that endurance of sitting and engaging the muscles of your core.
Right. Yep. No, I like how you said, think about the day itself. Think about the event day. And I would even expand upon that to say, think about the type of course you're going to do. What is the road condition like? A lot of times if you're going to do an event with us, you can ask us, and if we have experience doing it, we can tell you, it's a more of a bumpy road, or it's a really soft road. What kind of chair are you going to be in? Typically if you're going to do an Ironman, we're going to choose our lightest, fastest chairs. But what that means is those are the chairs that usually have the least amount of cushion support.
Or room for movement,
yeah.
because they're aerodynamic, so they're a little smaller and they cut through the air a little.
Right.
And Kayla and I discovered that
Yes.
in training too, because we did need to switch to a chair that was a little bit lighter and essentially it's easier for the Angel, a little harder for the Captain. So
Yep.
I think that leads into a good conversation about flexibility and movement when you're in the chair. So it's a very long time to be in the same position. So Kayla came up with, she would just, cross one leg over the other, and then maybe a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour later, she would switch. And that completely moved her into almost a different side of the chair, and then was able to put each leg into a different position. And I think that was a huge help for her throughout the day. So
it almost makes me think about when you're flying and they have that little thing in the back and they say, pump your feet and move your legs. I can't do that because I'm in a plane like this. I'm like, I can move my arm.
You need to buy 2 seats.
The one time I flew first class, I could do that. But I almost think of that, regularly, moving your body. Don't just sit still. I think some of that's true as well for Angels. I know when I've done longer distance bike training for Ironman or perhaps in a race itself, I have a watch, and it would go off every so often where it would alert me to remind me to take in fuel. And I also use that reminder as a means to kind of switch my position just a little bit. And it could be going from down in the arrows to up on the hoods or here, or just changing up to make sure that the longer I stay in one position, same is true for a captain, the more stressful that's going to be. So just continuous, movement to kind of keep the joints nice and lubricated.
Absolutely. I think that reminds me of, you also mentioned that you should consider which course you're on. And when I was at Ironman Florida, the only hill is an overpass on a bridge. Literally, that's the only hill. And I kind of underestimated that because during training I'm thinking, well, this is great. I'm going from Ironman Wisconsin with all these, hill after hill after hill.
Yep.
to this flat course. It's going to be a breeze. Well, that day I discovered that I realized later I was actually getting up and kind of just going like this at times, and then, moving like this. And I even, when I got off the bike, it's kind of that where if you sat like this for a few hours and you kind of like, it's like a creaking almost, like you're just cracking your back. So that makes a big difference, and it's the same concept that. So those hills can be kind of nice because even when you're a captain, you're in a different position when you're going uphill and downhill, but that all needs to be practiced. And so stretching and sitting in any chair and just crossing legs and moving one arm over, maybe grabbing one side of the chair to twist your core, just to get your core stretched out, and then switching sides, reaching for your toes. Reaching up behind you, anything like that can help your flexibility.
Yeah, and
range of motion.
Some of that movement too is helping the captain to become an active participant in the event, because when you're out on a bike course and you have twists and turns, it does help if you are kind of leaning into the turn. So you can think about the course as you're going through it. Don't just passively be a passenger going through the race. Like, move with the course. If you're going around a right-hand turn, if you lean into that turn, you add stability to the chair, and you're helping the team to go faster, and go further. So almost think of yourself as a co-pilot, if you will, in that. And obviously, Tricia gave some suggestions in terms of things that you can do seated. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. We don't have time to go over all those things. That would take a long time. But there's a lot of different options that you have as captains. Some of you guys are working at a service center such as CP. They have therapists there. Talk to them. Say, hey, I have a goal of increasing my core strength. I want to do this event. How can I improve that? And they're there to help you meet any goal that you want. Or if you're at your local gym and you're working with a trainer or a group fitness instructor or whatever, so talk to a professional and, ask those questions. Or when you see this video, type in some questions, and Coach Tricia and I can hopefully answer some of those for you. So that's physical. Just a few tips for you. Let's talk about nutrition. What are some things that captains can do?
Yeah, I think that's a big one for captains, because a lot of times it gets overlooked. You don't really think about, you think about, I have to swim and bike and run. Well, you have to eat too, and drink water. So
and I have to say, I remember one of the things, I've told you this maybe before, but one of the things someone told me is I was training for my first Ironman and I was nervous. They said, just think of it as a 140.6 mile eating contest.
Pretty much.
Which is so true. It is, definitely.
Yeah. So
and I think even more so for captains, because you're not physically moving as much.
Exactly.
And then before you know it, you're like, I'm just conked out. Like you really have to be aware of your nutrition.
Absolutely. And I think that watch, like setting that reminder, is a big deal. A lot of people do that. I mean, when I start training somebody for an athlete for an Ironman, even a year before their Ironman event, I'm hounding them. You have a 2-hour bike ride. What did you eat? What did you drink? What time did you eat it? How often did you eat? How much salt was there? And they're just like, it doesn't matter right now. Why does it? But the other day, I have somebody who was about a month out from an Ironman, and she said, wow, no one I rode with today had any idea what they were doing for nutrition, and all of them got tired. And she's like, I felt amazing. I'm so glad that I started recording what I needed to do, and now I have it figured out, and it's just one less concern. So as soon as you decide what event you're doing, you can start working on a plan. And if you can get that down on paper or in a computer, or just record it, what you do for all of your long training sessions, that's going to help you, and you can tweak that as you go and make sure that it works for you. But I think the biggest thing that I can tell people is listen to your symptoms. So you're going to have symptoms. You're going to get tired. You're going to get dehydrated. You're going to get you're going to have all these different symptoms during an event, and how are you going to respond to that? So if you feel hungry, you eat. If you get goosebumps or you stop sweating, you're probably dehydrated. You drink water. So figuring that kind of stuff out and how to respond to yourself is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. It's really important that the captain stay strong during that event, not just for you, but also for your angel as well. Um, you may feel like, as a captain, we've heard this from some captains, like, I don't want to eat because I don't want to add weight, to the chair, or I'm concerned about bathrooming. You know, that's a whole nother thing that needs to get figured out. But most importantly, as a captain, you need to be healthy. And when we're talking about long distance events, most of the time we're talking about you're going to be out in the chair for probably 2+ hours, which could go as long as 17 in an Ironman, or potentially even more if you're like Katie Newman and she does 100 miles. So you have to make sure that you're strong, and you don't want to wait. And I know as an athlete, the moment that you wait, the moment you know that you are super hungry, it's almost too late. It's almost too late then, and it's really hard to kind of recover from that. And so, eating, now obviously we're not saying, order a pizza, have it delivered to you out on the course, unless you're going to share with your angel.
That's been done.
That's
Kayla.
been done.
Kayla.
Kayla's done it.
Breadsticks.
Kayla, come on, girl. But yeah, definitely making sure that you're staying strong for your team, and having snacks there. Are there any general things that you would suggest about good things that are like maybe high energy? Or I know one of the things that I was given feedback on when I was training for Ironman is, start with some of these things, but you have to also experiment over the course of the weeks and months leading up to the event, because what works for some people may not work for others, and you don't know what's really best for you until you try certain things.
Right. So number one with that is don't try it on race day. So
Yeah.
don't ever try anything new on race day.
Yeah.
And I think if you can be as simple as possible, then you're not putting weird stuff into your body that your body doesn't know how to respond to. So, the nice thing about being a captain is you're not really going into a heart rate zone that is going to kind of shut down your stomach. So you actually can eat real food, and that I would encourage if you can do it. Obviously, it has to be simple logistically. You have to be able to either carry it on the chair or find it out on the course. But, I would tell people, if you don't like goo, don't eat goo.
Yeah.
You don't need to. There are other
Right.
options out there. So don't force yourself.
And sometimes the captains feel like they need to, or they want to,
Right.
because they want to
And if
feel
you
like they're
want
an
to
athlete.
and you like it, then
Yeah.
that's great. And that's simple
Sure.
and it works. But try it with
Yeah.
training and with your races or events leading up to it.
Last
Even the
thing you
short
want-
stuff. You don't need it sometimes. And if you were only racing short stuff, I would say don't do it. But if you're practicing for a bigger event, then practice it in the shorter event too.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
keep it simple. I think just keeping it simple is really important. When you,
It's good.
Yeah, I truly think nutrition is number one.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do your nutrition well, you may not finish the event. So
Yeah.
I truly think it's number one.
I agree. It's almost one of the hidden variables of training that not a lot of people think about. They think about, I got to put in my time on the bike or the swim or the run or in the gym doing strength training, whatever it is. And because I'm burning a bazillion calories as an athlete, they're just thinking about calories in versus calories out. Not all calories are equal. And, having the right type of nutrition is super important for you as a captain in order to be able to sustain yourself. So, and I think about liquids too. I know for long distance events, we have a lot of captains that have kept like a Camelback or something in the chair, and it holds 60 ounces of water or something like that, so that they don't have to stop. They've got it there for themselves. I think making sure that you bring with you whatever you have available to you is what you're going to eat, right? And if you make the right choices and you have that available, then you're going to be good. Otherwise, you're going to be forced to choose whatever's available out on the course just to survive almost, right? Like, I don't really want to have a goo, but I'm super hungry right now and I have nothing else. So we're going by an aid station. I'm going to grab a goo, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like wondering, is this going to agree with my stomach?
Right, especially if it's early on in the event.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So just reiterating, make
yeah.
sure you test out.
Yeah,
whatever you're having.
and talk to your team and find out, in this event, what's going to be on the course. And
Yeah.
so maybe it's great. Maybe it's bananas and you love bananas and that works for you. Great. Then you don't have to bring it and you can use what's out there.
Yep.
But make sure you know what's out there so that you're
Yeah.
not randomly testing stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're doing a half Ironman event and you're at mile 10 of the run and you're hungry for a popsicle that they're handing out on, that's fine.
Yeah.
But when you're halfway through the bike and you add something weird to your body, you don't know what's going to happen in 2 hours. So that's where you have to
Sure.
be careful
Sure.
and make sure you're eating something that your body's used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the last aspect, mental training. And I know that this is something that you really wanted to focus on as the last aspect of training for captains. So talk a little bit about what are some keys that you think for captains.
Yeah, I think when you look at an event, it's very exciting, and there's kind of this honeymoon phase, and you sign up and you see pictures and videos of all these people doing these events, and but then when you get down to it, it's hard work. It's hard work for everybody. It's hard work for captains and angels and coaches and support teams and volunteers and everybody involved. So you really need to start thinking about what are the things that could happen, and how am I going to cope with that. So I usually have athletes actually make a list of things that could happen. So if we get a flat tire, am I going to say, I quit, I'm too tired, I don't feel like dealing with this? If you get too hungry or sick or something, like, how are you going to cope with that? Are you going to give up? If you're uncomfortable in the chair, are you gonna just say, I can't do this anymore because I'm uncomfortable and it hurts? Or how are you going to deal with that? So I think it's just really a lot of it's actually it's mental training too, on how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And this is an endurance event. It's not supposed to be easy. It is going to be uncomfortable, and it shouldn't be so uncomfortable that it's causing injury or permanent damage or anything. But you're going to be sore and you're going to be tired. It's very hard.
You're right, though. I mean, you see typically when you see, hey, I want to do an Ironman, you're seeing like the finish photos, and you're thinking, how awesome is that? It is, but you're not seeing, mile 60 on the bike when you're just like, it is hard. And I love how you talk about training people mentally to visualize how they're going to respond to those tough situations. Mechanically, I'm in my low time right now in terms of energy. What am I going to say to myself? How am I going to get through that? So definitely love that suggestion.
There's a lot of things you can do, little tiny things for yourself too. You can have a favorite quote that really helps during a hard time, and keeping it in the chair or on your bike, for angels, and or a favorite song that maybe you could have your family out there and they can play it for you at mile 16 of the run, or whatever. Just little tricks that you can use to make sure that triggers like a good memory and a good feeling that you can help get yourself through it. I'll go back to Kayla, one more Kayla story, just because you're tough, Kayla. But we were really late into the run, and it was dark out, and I think she said to me, I'm getting tired, or it was something like that. And I said, you can fall asleep, that's okay. And she said, no, I can sleep when I'm done, or something like, it was something to that regard where, she's like, nope, I know it's going to be tough right now. I know I'm going to be tired, but when I'm finished, I can sleep and I can rest and I can relax. But right now I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to focus on that finish line and be tough.
That's awesome. So knowing that this is just temporary, this discomfort, this pain is just temporary. You're going to get to that finish line. It's all going to be worth it.
And then you're going to be that finish line photo that everybody else sees to
absolutely.
To inspire them.
Yeah,
so.
Love it. Well, hope you guys really enjoyed some of these tips from Coach Tricia about training for captains in long distance events. Hopefully you found that helpful. Please feel free to add any comments to the video and we can answer those. But again, find ways to do it for yourself, to find ways to, physically train your body. Focusing on nutrition, what are the top things that you need in order to be successful, timing it out, choosing the right things, testing those things out before race day. And then mental training, preparing your mind for the highs and the lows, finding that power song or that power sing or the thing that's going to help you mentally prepare for the ups and downs for race day. It is a challenge. You got to expect that going in. It's definitely a worthy challenge and one that is going to potentially change your life, but it is not one that you want to take lightly. So that's why we do these things. That's why we do events like Ironman. it could become a whole new person in many ways. So definitely let us know if you have any questions. Just want to do a preview of next month. So for the August, we're going to do a quick video sooner than later. We're going to introduce Team Autumn, but we're also going to, for the Coaches Corner session, Trisha's going to do a Q&A. So we're going to do, instead of having that be part of the Beyond the Chair video, we're going to do a live Q&A. We're going to invite you guys to also submit some questions ahead of time. Trisha, they can focus on a wide variety of topics, right?
Anything.
Anything?
Throw it out there, because if you have that question, somebody else probably does.
Yeah, it could be physical training, again, nutrition, mental, you know, I know maybe even dig into some of the swim, bike, run aspects, maybe some mechanical types of things, but really looking forward to that. So please feel free to complete that form, submit those questions ahead of time, and we'll get to answering as many of those as we can. So that's going to be the August Coaches Q&A session. So Trisha, thanks for taking the time and giving some great tips for our captains. And enjoy your day, guys. Thanks so much.